One of the more traditional tunes on an album that New Order put out after discovering the joys of Ibiza and acid house and all that stuff. That's Run from the album Technique, which I think was 1989. Steve Merchant, The Steve Show, 6 Music. What time is it? 3:05. We've already played a great tune. I'm excited. And now, for those of you that didn't listen last week, there is a very simple policy on this programme. It's kind of a meeting place, if you like, to swap and to share music. But I don't want you to, if you've only just joined in, I don't want you to think it's an intimidating place. It's not, you know, a sort of trendy, interior designed private club with an imposing bouncer on the door. It's a real spit and sawdust kind of joint. No pretensions, a lot of friendly staff, a lot of spilt beer on the floor, pop in the lavatories, you know, one of the toilets is clogged up with tissue paper, there's a smackhead, you know, just shooting up in the other one, you know, it's really, do you know what I mean? And there's, you just walk to the bar, there's a couple of sad, lonely, 6 Music-esque listeners, you know, just propping up the bar, and let me introduce them to you. Here they are, it's Dan and Harry, they were here last week, they're here again. Let's have a Steve Wright-style round of applause. I'm a big fan of a Steve Wright-style round of applause. I just think it adds energy to a show which is otherwise a bit flat. Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking. They're thinking if they heard Dan and Harry's music selections last week, they're disappointed. They're thinking, oh God, he's got those guys back. I didn't like their music. I didn't like their personalities, their attitude. Don't worry, they're not going to be here forever. It's just, you know, we're easing into a new show. It's better to just kind of keep some familiar voices on the radio. So, Harry, introduce yourself again.
Yeah, hello, Steve. I'm Harry, as I was last week.
Thanks very much. It's difficult when you say introduce yourself, because what are you expecting to say? Maybe I'd like to hear maybe about your age and perhaps, you know, your passions and loves in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, I'm 32. I work in a bank. You know, I don't do this for fun.
Sure. Sure.
You know, you make me.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, obviously I love my music. I'm a big 6 Music listener, and hoping to lay down some treats for the people out there today.
Thanks very much indeed. It was almost, there was a slight DJ swagger to that voice, and it was nice.
Well, I've had a week to polish.
Exactly, very good. And Dan is my flatmate. He's also my tenant. I rent to him. We live together, as I said last week. Not in that way. Nothing wrong with that way. Dan, introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Dan. I was here last week, and it's very difficult to come up with anything new. If you weren't listening then, I do work somewhere else in the BBC, but I'm not quite sure what I do.
No, you're not an official. The main thing is that neither of you work in the music business, and that's the whole point about this show. It's not about music experts coming in telling you what you should like. It's about music fans, such as ourselves, sharing music with you, the listeners, and you returning the favour. Which is why later in the show we will have 2 listeners on. They will be playing a tune, hopefully persuading me to include it on the Steve Show playlist. You too can also get involved with that if you want to go to the webpage. I think it's www.bbc.co.uk/6music. Follow some kind of link, probably my face gurning back at you, and you can make your recommendations. You can make your stuff there, and maybe in the future we'll have you on the show. Let's have some more choices from me before we get to these boys' selections. It's a shame that if the only image you have of Doherty is through his tabloid representation, then you may well have dismissed him as being, you know, just some kind of wild, out of control, you know, indie hopeful. But when he writes songs like that, you know, you just think, come on, clean yourself up, man. You could be great. You could be one of the greats. Wolfman with Pete Doherty, and is it Doherty or Doherty? I never quite know. I think it's Doherty, isn't it? Get in touch. Do you know what? No, don't get in touch and correct us on that, because it's just not significant. And the song called Four Lovers. And I was thinking, because whenever I read these articles about Doherty, I'm always slightly ashamed that I'm not more rock and roll. And I mean that in the broadest sense, you know, and I think we know what we mean when we talk of Doherty's rock and rollness. And I was thinking, this is a good example of how non-rock and roll I am. When I first moved to London, I was invited to what I thought was just a regular nightclub. And it was, I remember it was behind Tottenham Court Road, and it was essentially a speakeasy. Right, and you went in there, and you know there was a little slit in the door, and they opened it up, and the guy sort of looked at us intimidatingly, and we went in there, and it was very debauched. No furniture, nothing on the walls. You know, it was essentially like a sort of squat version of a nightclub. And I remember there was a guy who was very intimidating, the security, and he walked around, prowled around, and he had an 8-ball on the end of a chain. I remember thinking, where'd you get an 8-ball on the end of a chain? You pop in somewhere and say, could you just attach this to her? And anyway, and I remember thinking, and there was a lot of naughtiness going on, you know, and I'm not gonna, because it's 6 Music, it's BBC, but it was pretty rock and roll in there, and it was outrageous. There was, you know, all sorts of nonsense going on. And the whole time I was in there, I was thinking, this place does not comply with health and safety regulations. There was no fire exits, there were clearly no smoke alarms. Had there been a fire, heaven forbid, I don't know how we'd have got out. And I think you know you're not rock and roll in your blood when you're in a speakeasy and all kinds of debauchery is going on, and you're just thinking, I don't know how I'd make an exit if there was any kind of problem. And so that's my problem really. I feel like I'm not naturally rock and roll. Boys, are you rock and roll through and through?
Well, I wouldn't say I was. I'm clearly several rungs up the ladder from you.
Sure.
But rock and roll isn't really in my blood. I don't know about Harry.
What's the most rock and roll thing you've done, Dan?
Oh, me. I once threw a full banana out of a window, and I didn't care where it landed. I just didn't care. This was when I lived in Bristol, and we lived on the second floor, so it had a long way to go.
Sure.
So you know, that was pretty wild.
What did it do? Just land in the front garden?
Yeah.
Rock and roll, man. High five.
High five.
Yeah. Harry, what about you? Are you a rock and roller?
Pretty much so, Steve, yeah. What I do, I also carry an 8-ball on a chain, but I use mine to rig pool tables. Right, so rather than paying £1 a go, you know, I don't carry that sort of change with me. I slip the ball in, pull it back up with the change, all the others are flushed out, I've got a free game of pool.
Ding dong, that's a pound safe. Nice work. Round of applause for that. That's the kind of thing that on a public service broadcaster like this we need to.
You're surely worried now that that's not strictly legal, and are going to advise Harry to desist.
Hey, do you know what? There are so many things on this show that are a little bit near the edge. I mean, I've often talked about how friends of the past, one of whom later, the walker Dave, who's walking. Well, we'll come to that later. But anyway, he sometimes sends me compilations. I think you'll find he's breaking any number of copyright infringements. I do not care. All I do, obviously, I do not condone that in any way. Do not ever. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. I should make that clear straight away. Do not ever break copyright infringements, particularly if they're my own DVDs or product. But more importantly, do not download music illegally. Buy it through iTunes or other MP3 software, or buy it in a shop. Do not steal. Do not thieve. That is that. No, it seems now like you think I'm being flippant. I'm not being flippant. You know, how are multi-millionaires like Chris Martin and Noel Gallagher going to buy a 15th property in the Seychelles unless you are buying their music? No, and I genuinely, it sounds now like I'm being flippant. I'm not. I do think it is wrong to steal music, because I think it'll just lead to chaos in the future. But anyway, you remember last week we were trying to find out what the average Six music listener is like. Who are they? How do they think? Get in touch. I want to find out what you, the listener, what's the most rock and roll thing you've done? Now, obviously, steer clear of the naughty, the illegal. I just want to find out what did you do if someone was to say to you, are you rock and roll? What's the one thing that you've done that you would point to? Harry, what's the email address?
The email address, Steve, is stephen.sixmusic@bbc.co.uk.
Is that Stephen with a PH?
It certainly is.
And Dan, what's the text?
64046.
I didn't get that. Give it to me again.
64046.
I still haven't made a mental note. Please, once more.
64046.
Supergrass, St. Petersburg. I play that for anyone who managed to go along to the Pudstock music gig that was on yesterday in London, and I believe that you could only get tickets, I think, if you bought a Christmas pudding, and then found a special coin, Willy Wonka style, inside, and that got you along to the gig. Or you could bid for them on eBay, which is what I did. And I was amazed at how amazed other people were that I'd actually paid for a ticket. They obviously thought that, with my showbiz life, that I could blag any kind of ticket, but no, I thought it was important to give to the charity concerned, which was Crisis, in this case, helping out homeless people. And I've been a little bit disrespectful of homeless people in the past. I remember, because it's very easy to ignore them. And I remember I was at a cash point once with my friend, and it was when the clocks go back, and the homeless guy said to my friend, clocks go back tonight, and my friend said, without thinking, yep, extra hour in bed. I thought, you don't mention that to a homeless guy. He's had a 4 hours sleep. He's tanked up on the special brew, trying to sleep on Tottenham Court Road. So it was a good gig, and we had Supergrass there. It was a very intimate venue, only about 300 people. It was lovely. Also, Dirty Pretty Things played. So it was great, and obviously you should support Crisis. So go along to Crisis website and, I don't know, donate your car or something. Round of applause for Crisis. Steve Wright-style. We've had a number of emails and texts about the most rock and roll thing. We'll come to those shortly, although Adam in Southampton, we obviously can't read that out, but yes, that is rock and roll. Now, part of the reason that I wanted to do this show was really to kind of explore the fact that I source my music from the usual places. I get them from free CDs on the cover of magazines. I get it from listening to the radio. But most importantly, I get it from recommendations from friends. That's why I've got to. And let's be honest, we've said it before. They're nobodies. They're just oiks from the street. But their music taste is sometimes acceptable, and that's why I brought them in. And they are here to kind of introduce tunes to me and present them to me and see if they'll make it onto the Steve Show playlist. I've decided to pit them against one another for no good reason beyond the fact that we've got to fill up some airtime. And so we will be asking you, the listener, to vote on the choices in due course. But who's up first, Jude? Is it Dan? Is it Dan? Dan, what's your choice number one this week?
Well, thanks, first of all, for pitting us against each other.
Yeah.
I've been spat at in the street. People have gone up. Anyone who listened last week would know that I was beaten by Harry 2-1. And it was a humiliating defeat. So I've brought out some real big guns this week.
Really? Well, we'll be the judge of that, but go on.
Well, first tune is by the New Rotary Connection.
Right.
I don't know if you're familiar with them. They were kind of a sort of, I don't like the word fusion, but they kind of crossed between rock and soul. And
sounds like fusion to me.
Yeah, a little bit. And late 60s, early 70s, you know, a very creative time for music, but there was also a lot of dross around about this time.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to say that they didn't occasionally go a bit experimental, but I think this is a great tune. I think you'll find my 3 tunes today are all in some way quite uplifting, and I think this is a great Sunday afternoon uplifting tune. It's got a big sound, and hopefully it'll lift the vibe. It's called Vine of Happiness.
So why did you decide to throw a banana out of a window?
Well, you know, I thought I'd sample a bit of the rock and roll lifestyle.
But why a banana? I mean, presumably you looked around your lounge and you thought, I'm not going to throw the TV out, that's madness.
No, that would be madness. And I think deep down inside, I had a deep care and concern for anybody who might have been walking by.
Was it a banana that had gone off, or you probably weren't going to eat it anyway?
No, it was still edible.
Right. So that's at least 12p wasted.
Yeah.
Wow, that is rock and roll.
So you're more impressed, I can see your eyes lighting up.
I am indeed. Have we had any rock and roll emails, texts?
We have, actually, yeah, Steve. Pedro got
Pedro?
Yeah, he got drunk on JD with Lemmy in the Whiskey A Go-Go.
With rock and roll Lemmy?
I think that's it. That might be the whole topic closed, because that must win on any day.
Well, that's if it's the Lemmy. I mean, it may just be a mate of his.
Yeah, if it's just Lemmy. A guy called Lemmy.
Yeah. But if it's the Lemmy, that is the winner.
Perhaps JD with Lemmy is a cocktail. Well, it's just JD with lemonade. I'm not sure. Perhaps if Pedro could clarify, that'd be nice.
Any from you, Dan?
We're sort of asking people to keep them nice and short. But this is a simple one. Someone who's thrown their TV out of the window when they were a student, and they'd had a few cheeky ones. But they were on the ground floor, and the TV didn't even break.
Oh, that's pathetic.
Kind of diminishes the effect.
I'm not a fan of people who just copy the classic rock and roll poses of the past. I mean, throwing a TV out the window, it's just so dull. I mean, if you're going to throw anything, well, make it a banana, obviously, that's what we're saying. But it's like when bands smash up guitars. You just think it's so yawnsome. Because I always look at bands, particularly young bands who are just starting out, and they smash up a guitar, and I think, do you know what? You've not made enough money yet to be able to afford to do this at every gig. Again, that's my mind, you see, that's the way I work. I'm not rock and roll. I'm thinking that's silly. You could have auctioned that for charity.
But also, Steve, the young people watching, they might be inspired to take up a musical instrument. Well, there's one just been destroyed in front of them. That's going to put them off.
Yeah, it's madness. Listen, what was that tune you just played for us, Dan?
So that was the new Rotary Connection and Vine of Happiness. If the vocalist was familiar there, it's Minnie Riperton, who went on to have a global smash with Loving You. But I don't know what the vibe is from Harry.
Well, my thoughts were I could see that getting turned down by the execs at the ad agency for Diet Coke for being too drippy and wet. It was quite enjoyable, but really, it went on.
It sounded like it could have come from the soundtrack for Hair or some kind of musical. Right. Well,
it's not fun. It's big. It's dramatic.
This week, well, I would say that this week it's not up to us. It's up to the listeners. And obviously, the text lines do not open yet until you've heard both tunes. Harry, what's your choice?
I'm going to be playing Glamorizing Cigarettes by Scarce.
That's pretty rock and roll.
Exactly. And, it was from the time back in 95 when it was fashionable to sound as if you'd been smoking a few fags before you started singing. Quite interesting. The band released this single off the album. The lead singer then had a brain aneurysm, was out of action for a long time. They re-released the album in the States with a completely different lineup, but the band kind of dissolved into nothing. But this is a great single.
That's Harry's choice this week on the Steve Show 6 Music, Glamorizing Cigarettes from Scarce. Dan, what were your thoughts?
I believe I remember Scarce, actually, which is unusual because it's the first of Harry's tunes that I've ever heard of. And I thought it was very, very predictable, a sorry choice from a man whose powers are rapidly fading.
But, this man had a brain aneurysm, Dan. You're having a go at him. He's just made a lovely song.
Get out.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Shall I go?
Now, as I say, last week I made the decision, but this week it's up to you, the listeners, just to keep you involved, keep you listening. I mean, otherwise you probably shoot off, do something more important, more significant with your time. Perhaps go to the cinema. That's what I do on a Sunday afternoon. But you can get in touch, 64046, make a note of it, and have it pinned up by your radio. It makes perfect sense. 64046. We've got Dan's choice. The new Rotary Connection and Vine of Happiness. What's a Vine of Happiness? Beautiful, beautiful thing. What is a Vine of Happiness? Well, this is Harry's choice. This is Scarce and Glamorizing Cigarettes. So you can get in touch. Text Dan for the first one, text Harry for the second, 64046. It's 6 Music, it's Steve Merchant, and we'll be back after the news. That's the first song in a new feature that I'm going to call A Song That I Heard on the soundtrack of a TV programme or a film that I saw. We've never really come up with punchy titles for our features, I admit that. Of course, coming later, Mr. Cover, or is it Mr. Coverman? I'm beginning to think Mr. Coverman might be better.
Yeah?
You're the guy in charge of the jingle, Harry.
I'll tell you what, give me 20 minutes, I'll work on it.
Thanks very much indeed. Because there's this great TV show that you may not have seen yet called Entourage, which is following the adventures of a sort of up-and-coming movie star in LA, loosely based on one of the executive producers' lives, Mark Wahlberg. And he's got this gang of his entourage who follow him around, and they're great characters. It's very charming, very sweet. If you've enjoyed films like Swingers and things like that, you'll really love this show. I think it's on ITV2 or ITV4. I think you'll find it perhaps paired up with a TV show called The Office, the American version. I don't know if you've heard of it. And anyway, it's dynamite, and that was used at the end of it of one of the episodes. But it's such a great tune because it's so pretentious. It's brilliant. There's a great lyric in it. I had to print it out because I just love it so much. Is there a more pretentious lyric than "Indians scattered on dawn's highway bleeding. Ghosts crowd the young child's fragile eggshell mind." Ghosts crowd the young child's fragile eggshell mind? I just looked at that so many times, I have no idea what that means. But it's from Morrison Hotel from 1917, it's The Doors with Peace Frog. Before the news, we asked for your votes on the various tunes that Harry and Dan have brought in, and I'll tell you guys, I might have to get some fresh blood, because it's not been positive. I was all for Harry's choices last week. This track blows. Oh dear indeed.
Face, Harry.
Martin in Leeds says both tracks pretty poor, I'm afraid, so I can't bring myself to vote for either.
Oh dear.
Look at that guy's actually he's texted in to say that he can't even be bothered to text in.
Yeah.
That's how much he hates you.
That's bad, isn't it?
I abstain with my vote as both tracks were terrible. Get a grip. I'll tell you, that's from Chris. I'll tell you, if you don't buck up your ideas with your second choices a bit later on, then we really are going to have to think about getting rid of you guys, because, I mean, the whole point is, I've said you are friends, and that sometimes friends can have valid musical opinions. You've already proven that that's not the case, because I'm easily swayed by public opinion.
Yeah. Are you starting, in the face of this unpopular opinion, are you starting to regret the day you ever invited us on?
I'm beginning to regret the day I ever looked at you.
Yeah.
And your stupid banana-throwing face. Now then, I also, obviously a lot of people know me as one of the great romantics. No, they do! They know me as one of the nation's great romantics, great poets, and you can see that in my work. But, but also, a lot of people don't realise this is a little bit of a revelation for people. I'm also one of the nation's great lovers. In the sense that, I think I understand the chicks. The birds, which is one thing straight away that endears you to any chick or bird, just by calling them a chick or a bird. And so I'm thinking, because last week we were trying to find out what the average Six Music listener was like, and we realised that many of them very cool, very funky, very young. Some of them still a bit older, perhaps living with their mums, maybe not yet, perhaps found the woman of their dreams. And so I'm thinking each week I will come up with a song which I think, if you were going to pop it on a compilation, and perhaps pop it anonymously through a letterbox, which is the best way to win a woman's heart. You follow her around, okay, but make sure that she never sees you. So if she's in a cafe, just sit about 6 tables away, just slowly watching her, in the vain hope that one day she'll notice and she'll think, you know what, that weirdo following me around, maybe I should ask him for a drink. That's the way to win a woman's heart. But ultimately, of course, you'll have to do the compilation CD or tape, and I once again stress that this is an infringement of copyright and therefore should not be done or encouraged. But however, you should in the end have to play music to seduce the ladies, and so each week I'm thinking maybe a song to seduce the ladies with, and who better than Conor Oberst, otherwise known as Bright Eyes. And this is such a beautiful tune. I'm sure you've heard it before, but it's always worth listening to again. Okay, so you work in an office and you're sort of approaching middle age, and there's a woman you work with you've had an unrequited passion for many years. She treats you as a friend, she'll have a drink with you after work, but there's nothing more than that. But little does she realise that you're secretly in love with her. Just pop that as opening track on the CD you're making for her, slip it into her desk drawer, right? No note. Because over the course of the weeks, I'm going to slowly build up this compilation CD for you. You're going to pop it in the drawer. It's going to be 10 tracks. She's going to listen to it unexpectedly, come Valentine's Day, and she's going to be so overwhelmed by the beauty and the heart behind that album that she's just going to seek you out. Okay? She's going to seek you out. Probably by looking at security surveillance footage, at your workplace. But nevertheless, she will seek you out. Your eyes will meet. Your hearts will melt. So, listen in each week and we will build up the most romantic songs to seduce women by compilation. Bright Eyes, from one of the best albums of 2005, I'm Wide Awake It's Morning, and that was First Day of My Life. We need to put to bed the first of your musical duels, because frankly, I want to draw a line under it as quickly as possible. We've had nothing but negativity so far towards both of you. Hate in the case of you, Dan.
Yeah.
But just general apathy in the case of Harry. So I think, Jude, am I right in saying that Harry's probably won that first one?
Hands Hands down.
Hands down. So round of applause, Steve Wright style for Harry.
Yeah, whatever.
Leave for me.
Whatever.
I'm really hoping that you're going to butt your ideas up a bit later on when we have your second choices. If you have disagreed so vehemently with their choices, then that's the whole reason you should go to sixmusic.co.uk / no, hang on, what's it? That can't be right. No, it must be bbc.co.uk / sixmusic. Look for my face, follow that handsome face to my webpage, and there you can find out how to register your choice for a song that we should include on the Steve Show playlist. Okay, now, each week I like to include, as you know, some hippity hop. I'm pretty down with the kids, I'm pretty funky. I could, as I said before, I'll say it again, I could bust for you right now, on the mic, every single word of Mr. Will Smith's Boom Shake the Room. I'm not going to do it because I think that's a Christmas special kind of event. But nevertheless, each week I'm going to choose a hip-hop track. And also I thought maybe this week I can perfectly fuse it with a new feature I'm thinking of, which is that it's Sunday. It's a day of religion for many people. I myself am not, but I understand there's much great music made with a religious theme. So I fused hip-hop and religion into this cracker from Kanye West.
Don't fail me now.
My hip-hop choice for this week, and I'm sure if you're a regular Six Music listener you'll have heard it before, it's Kanye West, of course, and Jesus Walks from the College Dropout, which is already 3 years old, that album. It seems so recent. A melancholy thought for a Sunday afternoon. Thanks very much. Listen, still to come, we've got Richard's stupidly difficult music quiz, which infuriated many listeners last week, and I hope it will do the same again this week. Plus, we'll be catching up with Dave. What can you say about the man, Dave? I mean, a maniac, a weirdo, a freak, almost somehow a symbol of our existential emptiness in this universe. And he is walking... It just amuses me to think about it. He's walking from Land's End to John O'Groats for no reason. As far as we can identify, no reason. He's not doing it for charity. He can't really seem to give us a decent explanation. He's just doing it. I've checked with him, and he was on, what did I say? Was it Dartmoor, I said?
Dartmoor, I believe, yeah.
He was on Dartmoor. I mean, I don't know what it's like there. It must be freezing. Sub-zero temperatures. I imagine, knowing Dave, he's not taken a decent pair of walking shoes or a woolly coat. So, I don't know what he's doing, but we'll catch up with him later, and he'll also have a cracking music choice recommendation for us. Back to the recommendations from you boys. As I say, we'll draw a line under what happened in that previous half hour. What have you got for us? Who is it starting this week? This time?
Harry.
Is it Harry first? Okay, Harry.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be playing Colour Madre by Delta.
Right.
Delta, who were formed out of the crushed shells of 80s janglers, the Sea Urchins.
Right.
They were one of the great lost groups, really. The lead singer, James Roberts, went on to make a fine solo album last year. But this is off their first album proper, Slipping Out, Colour Madre.
Hey, what's that crowding that young child's fragile eggshell mind? It's some ghosts. What's that scattered on dawn's highway bleeding? It's some Indians. I've no idea what that means. We should obviously, I mean, I'm sure everyone's done it on a radio show in the past, but I do adore pretentious lyrics. We should open that to the listeners one week, because, oh, that's magnificent. I just have to read it again, because it's such gobbledygook. Indians scattered on dawn's highway bleeding, ghosts crowd the young child's fragile eggshell mind. Oh, beautiful. If you've just joined us, then you won't know what that means, and you should have tuned in earlier, or maybe you can listen again. I guess that function is available, right, Jude? Yeah, they can go onto the website and listen again. We are in the midst of listening to Harry's first choice in this second challenge, a musical duel with Dan. Harry, what was that track again?
That was Colour Madre. That was Colour Madre by Delta.
And, well, we'll let it speak for itself. You do like the jingle jangle guitar, don't you?
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you ever going to change that in future weeks? Because we don't want to tire listeners with that if they're not a fan.
Well, no, I'll certainly bring in some MOR drivel. Might liven things up a bit.
Thanks very much indeed. Dan, what were your thoughts?
Well, Harry says he'll bring in some MOR drivel in future weeks. He just has.
Ooh,
that was dreadful. That really was.
But dreadful, you're saying?
Yeah, they're dreadful. Dreadful. It was a soundtrack to waiting in a queue in a post office. It was almost like they'd taken some aspects of nice, respected artists, and produced that sludge. There was nothing to it. It was even worse than the first song.
You're in a queue in the post office waiting to get your passport updated to fly to San Francisco for the holiday of your life, hanging out with the stars.
Oh, maybe so. Well, okay, once again, of course, you don't text in yet. We'll have to hear Dan's choice first. Earlier we were trying to find out what's the most rock and roll thing that you, the listener, has done. Have we had more responses to that, Harry?
Yeah, absolutely. Chris in Huddersfield, when he was a young'un, went out on Friday night and he woke up on Sunday morning. You didn't miss here. He lost a day. He woke up on Sunday morning in a graveyard. He has no idea what happened in between, nor how he ended up asleep in a graveyard.
What was his name?
Chris in Huddersfield.
If you know Chris from Huddersfield and you know what happened during that missing day, then we'd obviously love to hear from you. Get in touch, although I suspect, you probably still won't remember yourself. 64046, Stephen with a PH, .6music@bbc.co.uk if you want to get in touch. Dan, any more rock and roll text emails?
Yeah, well, Ted in Somerset's been in touch, and...
Who was that?
Ted.
Ted?
Ted, yeah, you know him, West Country lad. He did... Well, it was kind of similar to what I did with chucking a banana out the window, except he chucked a £1,300 bass guitar out of a 12th floor hotel window. Now, I'm not sure if that's the weight or the cost of the bass guitar. I'm hoping it's the cost.
Yeah.
But either way, it's pretty bad, and obviously both were wrecked. I don't think anyone was injured, but...
You've speculated on that, of course. You don't actually know that a man could have been killed, in which case we should not be being flippant.
Yes.
Do not throw guitars or anything else out of hotel windows. Another important message from the BBC. So that was Harry's choice. Dan, you've got another one, and it better be good.
Yeah, I think, well, it'll be all over Harry's. I got slaughtered for the first choice, but I think I'm going to redeem myself now with a song by Brassy. It's called Good Times, and that sums it up perfectly well. It's a punchy little number from 2000, and I don't know if you're aware of Brassy or of their work. They never really hit the mainstream, but Muffin Spencer is the singer here, who is the sister...
One of the least rock and roll names.
Yes, Muffin. I'm not sure where that's come from, but she's the sister of John Spencer, of the John Spencer's Blues Explosion.
Okay, well, I'm intrigued to hear it now. Let's hear Brassy.
Let's go for it.
I don't want to sway the vote one way or the other, but I love Dan and hate Harry. So you make up your own minds, but I really enjoyed Brassy, Good Times. But it's not up to me this week, it's up to you, the listener, to decide which of those tracks makes it into the Steve Show playlist. Interestingly, we have some listeners coming up very shortly who will be trying to persuade me to have one. Do they realise, Jude, that they're up against each other, competing with one another? I hope so. I hope they're persuasive. And also seductive. I don't know why I said that, I just like saying the word seductive. Yes, so that was Brassy, that was Dan's choice. What more can you tell me about Brassy? Are they still together?
I've no idea. And they released an album in 2003, which I didn't get either.
Right.
I love that was from a 2000 album called Got It Made, which I think is brilliant, one of my favourites. And I never bothered following that up.
I often do that. I'll listen to an album and think, this is absolutely amazing. Like, with Bright Eyes, I loved it.
Yeah.
Did I buy the other albums? No.
I can't explain it, I don't know why.
I'm moving forward. I like to find new artists. I've got very much a magpie mind when it comes to music. I have to say that I think that the download MP3 websites are brilliant for that, aren't they? Because they give you, 12 seconds of a song, and if you can't make up your mind whether you're to buy the album in that time, then frankly the song's not worth buying. Okay, let's have a reminder of the tunes we've just heard. This was Harry's choice. Colour Madre from Delta. 64046 is the text number if you want to vote for that one. This is the excellent Brassy and Good Times, chosen by Dan, and 64046 again is the text number if you want to vote for that one.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Dan for bringing to my attention John Spencer's unsuccessful family members. Maybe something by Mark Lanigan's auntie next week. Cheers.
The words of a desperate man.
Sour and grapes. I don't like to see those two items put together, but I'd rather fear they're here in the studio. That's a track featured on an album called Folk Funk Flavours, which has lots of nude people on the cover. Part of the reason I bought it. But annoyingly, absolutely no. Just be honest. Just be honest if that's the reason. But it's one of those albums where, I don't know who's knocked it together, but there's no details or information about any of the people whose tracks are included on the album. And that song's very confusingly credited to Christine Perfect, which is Christine McVie's real name, who then went on to join Fleetwood Mac. But it's actually from an album by Fleetwood Mac called Mystery to Me in 1973, before Stevie Nicks and that lot joined in and they all had rumours and all that success. And I think it's great. It's got a lovely folk funk flavour, which is exactly why I bought that album. No, it's not. I bought it because of the nudie people, alright? You've dragged it out of me.
I've got a little story about that, Steve. I was actually in a large London record store a couple of weeks ago. A couple of records I wanted to pick them up. Hadn't seen the covers. They'd both got naked women on the front. So I had to buy a third album to make it look like I wasn't a perv. So I picked up this third album, thought it was alright, didn't look at the back, got to the counter, there's a naked kid on the back of this third album.
What sort of album's that?
I don't know, but I'm not allowed back.
Rightly so. Listen, okay, so we've heard the choices of these two drones here in the studio, and I have to say the votes are coming in, and it's very, very interesting. It's neck and neck. Dan and Harry, neck and neck. You can still vote 64046, which of those tunes you preferred. I'm not surprised if you don't bother texting. I wouldn't. But of course, I've said since the beginning that this show is not just about the people in the studio, it's about the listeners at home. It's about you interacting with me, introducing music to me that perhaps I'm not familiar with, or that I've heard perhaps, but perhaps I've forgotten. It's wonderful, it's interactive, it's everything that the BBC's about. That's why I've got two listeners who have got in touch by going to the webpage and they've cast their vote. And on the line, I think we should have Simon. Are you there, Simon?
Yes, Steve, you're right.
Hello, mate. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from work, actually.
From work, really? Is this on the sly? Are you running up huge debts?
Tell me about it. Yeah, I've got
Nice
sneaked
work.
off. I'm in a very cold, quiet office by myself.
In a what office?
Very cold and quiet office.
Oh, nice work, man. Are you into the compilation thing? You know, I'm trying to put together compilations for the listeners if they're trying to seduce a workmate. Is there a workmate you've got your eye on?
This is a very male-dominated office, so I'll say no.
So I never said it had to be a female workmate. Did I?
Well,
Yes, I did. I did.
there's-
Yes, I did. I just said it was songs to seduce women by. I take that back. I do apologise, Simon. Amber is with us as well. Is Amber there?
I
Amber?
am, yeah.
Hello,
Hi.
all right. Say hi to Simon.
Hi, Simon.
Hello, Amber, you alright?
Yeah, you?
Not too bad.
I want to see how long they can keep this going. This is great. We're having a sort of threesome on the radio, a three-way on the radio. It's working well for us. Okay, so each of you have suggested tracks to me, and I have to say I've heard one of them, the other one I've not, but I'm not going to tell you which is which at this juncture. So, Simon, would you introduce your track for me, please, and tell me why you like it?
Sure, my track is it's a song called Do the Whirlwind
Okay.
by a band called Architecture in Helsinki.
Right, and do you like it for any particular reason?
It's just kind of a mad song. It's just they cram loads and loads and loads of really random instruments into this song. And it's kind of, you've got organs, keyboards, tubas, flutes, violins, electric guitars,
Did you say there was a tuba involved?
tuba,
I think you may have already won me over now,
cellos,
the tuba.
violas, violins, bassoons.
I thought the tuba was enough. The bassoon, I think you maybe won it over with that one. Okay, let's
Keep on going.
listen to the track then, and we'll come back and we'll dissect it afterwards. It's ruthless, isn't it, Simon? This is quite harsh. You know, I don't know what these boys are going to make of it, but it's, you know, they may tear you to shreds. Good luck, mate. That's the choice of Simon, who is currently at work. It's Architecture in Helsinki. It's a track called Do the Whirlwind. There are a lot of instruments going on there. You're absolutely right, Simon. Well done. Round of applause for Simon for identifying that there is a lot of instruments in that track. I have to say, Simon, straight away, I really enjoyed that track. It's the sort of my friend once described the kind of music that I like, and he made a compilation for me. In fact, he'll be coming up in future weeks. And it had very much, lots of tracks like that. And he said it was music for when spods dance. And I do feel that's exactly what it is, isn't it? It's for physics students to dance to. And nevertheless, I really enjoyed it. What drew you to Architecture in Helsinki? Are you a muso, or are you just a music fan?
I'm a bit of a muso, Sammy.
Are you really?
I'm a spod.
Are you a proper spod? What do you look like? Have you got glasses?
No, I don't, Sammy.
There's nothing wrong with glasses. I famously wear glasses.
Steve. We all know that.
I say famously. How presumptuous. I famously wear glasses. Well, according to who, Steve? So yes, well, I really enjoyed that. I'll just throw it over to my esteemed colleagues here, see what they made of it. Dan, what are your thoughts?
I absolutely loved it, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Architecture in Helsinki, and when Simon was describing it, I thought, oh my goodness, this sounds like an absolute disgrace. But he summed it up perfectly. It sounds like it should be an absolute mess, and it completely works. I really did enjoy it, and might even
It
seek
just
out
sounds,
some
it's a
more
really
myself.
simple song, and it just kind of, it should go horribly wrong, but it never does.
Absolutely right. Let's see if Harry agrees with you.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I particularly like the fact it sounded like it could be the soundtrack to Super Mario Brothers. I can imagine being sat there with that going on in the background. Bling,
But in a good way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I enjoyed it.
Well, okay, it's got the thumbs up from everyone here, and it's therefore a tough challenge for Amber, who's now going to introduce her track. Amber, hi, are you there?
Yeah.
You're still there. What did you make of that track, incidentally?
I really liked it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Right, so you give it a thumbs up as well. You may as well shoot off, love. It's not going to happen for you. It's not going to work. No, what track have you chosen for us?
Hallelujah.
Now, is
Jeff
this
Buckley's
is the Jeff Buckley version? Okay, so this theoretically could feature in our coming up Mr. Cover feature, or Mr. Coverman. We're not decided yet, but I love the cover versions. And so, what drew you to this track? I mean, it is a very romantic tune, and I'd be very surprised if it didn't make it in future weeks onto one of my compilations. Are you a Buckley fan generally?
I am. I love the album, and I think this track's just so simple. And
you
it works for the complete opposite reason. For the other one worked. It's just,
Because it's so elegant, so straightforward.
yeah.
We'll be the judge of that, Amber. We'll have a listen to it now. This is Hallelujah by Jeff Buckley. Jeff Buckley doing his version of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. It's the choice of Amber. I've pitted two listeners against each other, and I'm going to go straight away to Harry to find out what his thoughts are.
Well, it was ethereal and lovely, Steve. It's a classic, obviously, and it, of course, ticks two Steve Show boxes. It's a wonderful cover. It could also go on a compilation. We say it's for office workers, but say you work in a church, maybe there's a member of the congregation you covet,
or the
stick it on a
priest.
compilation. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm actually thinking that because so that makes it three, right? So it's a cover,
Yeah.
it's religious as well. I'm thinking the religious track section could maybe be called, what do you think to, God, That's Good? How's that? We can have that. We have a little jingle made up for that each week. Amber, obviously it's a beautiful tune, and in a sense I feel it's almost unfair to pit Simon against it, because I almost feel like in a way it's already on the Steve Show playlist. And Amber has very eloquently written why she loves the track, and she actually feels it's an improvement on the original Leonard Cohen original. You know, she says that he's got a terrible, terrible voice. Is that right, Amber?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at that. She doesn't care. She doesn't care. Maybe Cohen's listening. He's heartbroken now. His heart's falling to pieces, but he doesn't care. No, it's obviously a great tune. But do you know, the reason why I'm not going to choose Hallelujah, Amber, and you're going to be devastated, is exactly for that reason, because it's such a beautiful tune, and it's already on the Steve Show playlist. So I thank you very much for getting in touch, and I really appreciate you coming on the air, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to give it to Simon with his choice, Architecture in Helsinki. Round of applause, Steve Wrightstar. Yeah. You must be very, very pleased indeed, Simon.
Oh man, great stuff.
Has that given you a certain sense of purpose and meaning in your otherwise empty life?
Basically, this is it, Steve. It's all over.
This is it, isn't it?
This is the pinnacle.
How thrilling was it to talk to me? No, be honest.
Well,
okay, no, thank you. Your silence says it all. Speechless. The man is speechless. I appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed for getting in touch, Simon. Actually, interestingly, I noticed that both of you got fairly unusual surnames. Simon, what's your surname?
It's Nebeznik.
What's that?
Nebeznik. It's a kind of Polish Ukraine origin.
Wow, that's Nebeznik. And what's your surname, Amber?
Michael.
Smichael.
Yeah.
I guess it's not that unusual, is it?
No.
I didn't know where I'll be honest with you, I didn't know where I was going with that. I don't know where I thought that might lead us.
That's not going to be a new feature.
What's the most interesting surname that our listeners have? Thank you very much indeed, guys, for getting in touch. And if you want to get in touch and suggest a track that you'd like to hear played on the Steve Show, then bbc.co.uk/6music. You can get in touch via that. One of indie rock's great also-rans, that's Evan Dando and All My Life. I remember actually that may have I think I may have got that, Harry, from a compilation you made for me.
Yeah,
Do not make compilations, it breaks copyright laws. Yes, I never heard the album. Was it any good?
It was. But that was the best track on it, which is why I picked it for the compilation.
Thanks very much. Round of applause for that. Okay, now listen, last week if you didn't listen, if you were doing something worthwhile with your life, then you'll have missed the fact that I got in touch, just on a whim, with a very, very close friend that I haven't seen in 5 years. And I said to him, would you come on and introduce some of your music, because, you know, you've got great music taste. And he dropped the bombshell that at that very point he was on his way to Land's End to begin a walk from Land's End to John O'Groats. He should be on the line now. Dave, are you there?
Hi, Steve. Love the show.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, now, obviously, the thing that perplexed us the most, Dave, was the fact that you're walking all that way and you're not doing it for charity. One of the most perverse things any man has ever done. What exactly is your motive for doing this walk? We never really got to the bottom of it.
I've had a lot of time to think about this, and everyone's been asking me. And I'm doing it for fun, Steve. Although, you know, as the miles grind by and my knees disappear into the tarmac, the fun aspect seems to have disappeared.
Because what aspect of it would ever be fun?
Well, you know, I was hoping to join in with a few games along the way, maybe spy on children in playgrounds and...
Spy on children in playgrounds? Do you mean because you want to, you know, you mean of their youth and exuberance and...
Get back to nature.
Exactly, sure, I understand.
Yeah.
So strip off and run through a forest, that sort of thing. Yeah.
It hadn't occurred to me, but...
Why not throw it in? How did you get on in the great weather storm that we had a few days ago? The terrible, terrible winds. Were you walking during that?
It was windy, but dry. So, he must have passed me by. I was in a pocket.
Because we were hoping it would be behind you, sort of pushing you forward.
Well, so it kind of is. It was a bit like that, yeah.
And how far have you covered now? Where are you?
I've done 150 miles or so. I'm in Oakhampton. So I saw the back of Cornwall this morning. I've reached grey, miserable Devon.
And what are you doing to sort of keep up your morale? Have you got a radio with you? Can you listen to Six Music? I guess you can.
Unfortunately not, no. There's a lot of pubs on the way, Steve, and that tends to sort me out.
So do you just sit there like a weird loner, just staring at other people's lives,
I came second in a pub quiz this week, Steve.
What, on your own?
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
What do you mean more or less? You mean you were cheating, were you?
I was filled out of first place, and I'm not happy about it, but I won a pencil.
Ah, that's pub quizzes in Cornwall, isn't it? Win a pencil. I can't believe it. You know, he won a pencil once. Yeah, well, it's all very fair, but obviously we're deeply proud of you and also slightly perplexed because, obviously, as Dan was saying last week, there's a certain sort of existential darkness about you, Dave. So you say you're doing it for fun. In a way, I wonder, are you trying to find yourself?
Well, I'm certainly looking for something, Steve, but then aren't we all?
Sure, very wise. Well, very wise. Thanks for that. No, that's very profound. Okay, so you're going to introduce a track to us. So what have you got for me this week?
Okay, it's another one that I've had a long, hard think about, and you told me what to pick.
Uh-huh.
And it's by a band who kind of had a similar early start to a band like REM, so kind of garage rock throughout the 80s. And just as REM became massive, this band kind of influenced people in different ways, kind of started the whole alt country scene, influencing bands like Wilco. And it's a band called Green on Red, and the track's called Little Things in Life.
Listen, all the best, Dave, with your walk. We'll catch up with you next week, and hopefully we're going to put some photos, if you don't mind, of your walk up on the website so people can check out that you are actually doing this and that you're not just a crazy comic invention. Is that okay?
There's someone taking photos of me. You should have told me.
All right, Dave, thank you. All the best, mate.
All right.
CSS, of course, on Six Music. Steve Merchant, The Steve Show, and the song Music is My Hot, Hot Sex. If you are still hanging around because you're desperate to know who won the last musical duel between Dan and Harry, and let's be honest, who isn't, then I can announce now it was Dan.
Get in.
Yeah. Steve Wright.
Let's have a round of applause.
Yeah, Steve Wright style. Now, listen, we come to your final selections, gentlemen, and that therefore means that it is 1-1. Very exciting, just the way we like it. And it's not fixed this week either, because it was the...
That's how it was last week.
Yes, it was. Because it's the listeners that have been voting, so obviously don't text in until you've heard both selections. Dan, I've always been a bit scary. As you say, you are my flatmate. I often hear noodly jazz rubbish coming out of your room. I'm a little alarmed. What have you chosen for me now?
Well, I'm aware of that, Steve, and that's why I've chosen an artist by the Finnish jazz musician Jimmy Tenor, which I'm sure will win you over no end. I do actually like Jimmy. I've not just chosen him to annoy you. I've said jazz. He is a bit jazzy, but he's actually quite difficult to pigeonhole. He plays all kinds of stuff. It ventures into rock, into pop almost at times. But this is a track called Black Hole, which is from 2003, his Higher Plains album. I think it rocks, and I think it's going to win me the competition.
Well, we'll let the listeners be the deciding... Oh, hang on.
What?
Oh, it already sounds noodly and annoying.
I don't like it.
I don't know what's going on. This sounds like someone's attempt at music of the future that they recorded in 1963.
Do you hear that?
Hang on, listen to guitars.
Now?
I've changed my tune. I love the guitar.
I bet you'd love some drums right now.
Well, I mean, what's the chances of drums? I've had some noodly... Oh, hang on. Jimmy Tenor, let's hear it. That's Dan's final choice on this Steve Show musical duel. Jimmy Tenor and a track called Black Hole. Harry, I'm coming straight to you, man. I'm throwing straight over to you.
Kravitz.
I was going to say Kravitz. And it's not often I say Kravitz, but I don't care about that. Today I'm going to say Kravitz.
Sorry, did you both say cravats?
No, I'm afraid we both say Kravitz.
I thought you did, yeah.
That was the first thought. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Don't influence the public. It's not fair if you do that.
Well, there's a feeling, I think, with that tune, isn't there, Harry, that it's sort of, it's rock pastiche.
Yeah, very much so. It went on and on and on, and when the old flute came in, oh, God, no.
It's rock pastiche, and then the flute comes in. I mean, it's innovative. It's inventional.
No.
It's inventional?
Yes, it's inventional.
Oh,
It's
word to your
word.
I'm beginning to wonder if this is not just a vote, but actually that you'll get voted off, like on the X Factor,
well,
and that you'll never come back.
I am the Jade of this show.
You're very much the Jade, in every sense.
Yeah. Well, not in that sense.
No, I'm sorry, but when the microphones are not switched off, you will not believe the hate that comes out of this man's mouth. And I don't want the audience to think that I'm trying to turn them against you, Dan. But I was hoping you'd, because it was 1-1. It was.
I think that they will actually they'll hear this bullying by you two, and they'll see me as a Shilpa type character, and I'm actually going to cream this. Okay. I'm going to cream this, baby.
We shall see. Well, let's hear first Harry's choice. What have you got for us?
I've got a track called Action by a band called Clem Snide, named after a character that appears in a number of William Burroughs novels. Basically, a band, a front for the lead singer Eve Barzilay. That's the classic spelling of Eve, E-E-F. And I know you're wowed by crazy instruments, Steve, so in this track we've got euphonium, we've got xylophone, we've got a Eugene organ, and some guy who's playing a parade drum. It doesn't get better than that.
Action from Clem Snide. It's Harry's final choice on this Steve Show musical duel. Harry, I've enjoyed Clem Snide.
Thanks.
But I worry that you're just trying to pander to my tastes and perhaps those of the listener.
Well, I make no apologies for bringing in music that people might like, Steve.
Oh, he's turned that back at me.
I thought that was pretty much the idea.
Interesting. Dan, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was perfectly pleasant. As your second choice and your first choice were, and all three of your choices were last week. Make of that what you will.
I'll say there's so much tension in here, it is like the Big Brother's house. I don't know which of you's the Shilpa, which of you's the Jade. I'm not yet made up my mind.
Can I be George Galloway?
By all means, get on your knees. I'll tell you, if you've not watched Big Brother, that you don't know what that means. No. Okay, so once again, you, the listeners, decide which of these boys gets your vote. However, do not text yet, because now it is time for me to introduce Richard again. Now, Richard is the guy that is the quizmaster at a very, very difficult musical quiz that I sometimes attend Monday nights at the Three Kings pub in Clerkenwell, East London. And the man knows his onions, and he's going to set a question for you. Do you know what? I decided we're not even going to give a prize. It's just an attempt to find the biggest Six Music listener nerd. Really, it's a wonderful honour. We shall have a crowning ceremony at the end of the whenever we stop doing this show, which may be fairly soon if this link doesn't finish now. Okay, so here's Richard's question.
Hi, it's Richard here with another fiendishly difficult music question. Which two American bands of the 1960s were both originally called the Warlocks? Ooh. Which two American bands of the 1960s were both originally called the Warlocks?
Oh, it's tricky, as we'd expect from him. 64046 is the text number if you want to drop us your answer. But also, at the same time, vote for Dan and Harry's selections. Let's remind ourselves of them.
Great tune.
This was
what
Jimmy Taylor.
Black Hole. What a tune.
As we said earlier, one word for you.
Kravitz. Biased.
You're everything I want.
It's been a fairly alt-country-esque show, hasn't it? With a whiff of that, harmonica and the like. Clever Snide and a track called Action. That's Harry's choice. So the first one Dan's, second one Harry's. So you've got so much to do on this text, it's very complicated. Pay attention. You've got to answer Richard's question, and you've got to vote for either Harry or Dan. 64046. Okay, so now it's the time that we've all been looking forward to. It's the only feature on this show that we've actually thought of a name for yet, and it's called... What are we calling it?
Mr. Coverman?
Mr. Coverman, or is it Mr. Cover?
Yeah.
Have you prepared a jingle for me?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
I was hoping you would have done.
Yeah, it's quite disappointing.
Can you just do it? Can you just do it live?
Mr. Cover.
Brilliant. It's almost racist. It's brilliant.
He is the Jade.
He's the Jade.
He is the Jade.
Oh,
I'm
no,
the Shumper.
Come on, let's not bring up that nasty subject. Jade Goody. What is she? Has she still got her? Has she still got her perfume line? Incidentally,
you can't.
Has she still got it? Is that what it's called? Shh. Ignorance by Jade Biddy. Okay, so yes, cover, Mr. Cover, Mr. Cover Man, whatever you want to call it. It's me playing a cover version. I love cover versions, and particularly when they reinvent the original in a breathtakingly new way. And this is one I think you may not have heard, and if you haven't, then you will adore it. I hope it is Mr. Ryan Adams doing his version of Oasis's Wonderwall. I absolutely love Ryan Adams, Mr. Ryan Adams. And you've always got to be careful when you're saying that, because ages ago I was in a bar and I was trying to chat up this particularly trendy girl, and it was very loud and the music was really pumping, and she said, what music do you like? And I said Ryan Adams, and she sort of went ashen-faced for ages, and I quite clearly realised that she'd thought, that I'd said Bryan Adams. And nothing wrong theoretically with Bryan Adams, although I'm always reminded of these lyrics from one Bryan Adams song. I don't want to name the song because it will perhaps give away these beautiful lyrics. Been around the world about 1,000 times. Still, a knock on the door makes me nervous. I think I'll see you standing there, but no, it's only room service. That's from the song Room Service by Bryan Adams. Oh, God bless him. Okay, so we were playing Mr. Cover, Mr. Coverman, that's Ryan Adams. Wonderful, it's a beautiful song. If you disagree, you're a maniac. But the really important information is to discover which of these guys is going to get voted off the Steve Show, never to return. Yeah, I decided that. Yeah, because both of you, I'll be honest with you, I was a little underwhelmed by all of your choices today. Oh. And I wonder if you need to... Yeah, no, you should look a bit disappointed with yourself.
Well, we didn't like your music that much.
So what does that matter? It's my show.
Yeah. He's got us there.
I've turned. He's got us. There really is. I'm trying to create that kind of Big Brother atmosphere because it's obviously everyone's talking about it. So I'm thinking if there's a tension and an anger in this place, if there's kind of nervous energy.
Well, people will be tuning in. If I get voted off, which is almost inevitable after your incredibly biased introduction, can I still live as your tenant, or do I
still live as my tenant? Okay. But also, what I'm hoping is we'll have to clear out the crowds that are normally outside the building waiting for us because after your choices. There'll almost certainly be a lynching of some kind. Okay, so do we have a result? Jude, what was the answer? Who has won?
Harry.
Hooray! Deservedly so.
I'm not applauding.
So,
I'll go on.
So Dan's been voted off. Thanks, Dan.
Well, I've enjoyed my couple of weeks.
We'll
It's
have
been
one of those
fun.
quick cursory Davina style interviews. How did you find your time in the Steve Show?
Well, it was incredible being in the spotlight like that. It was amazing.
Sure.
But, you know, I really, really loved it, and I feel like I've learnt so much about
You
myself.
learned something about yourself. What have you learned?
Yeah. I've learnt that nobody likes my music.
Yeah. And interestingly, by extension, you.
Yeah, because music is an extension of myself. So, you know, I had a few personality clashes, most obviously with Harry. But, you know, I don't wish him any ill will. And
There was a lot of laughs, Dan. There were also quite a lot of tears.
Yes, there were laughs and tears. But, you know, the public's spoken, and what can I say?
Dan, let's have a listen back to some of your best bits. Oh no, we can't. There weren't any. That's the sad truth. No, I'm sure we'll try and persuade Dan to come back at some point, but maybe we won't let him bring his record collection. All right, well, that's pretty much it from the Steve Show. Thank you so much indeed for listening. Oh, hang on. Oh, answer. Sorry. Yes. Do you know why I was so disinterested? Because it's so difficult. I mean, I don't know what kind of a maniac answers these questions. They're so hard. I don't even know why we came up with this idea for a feature. I love it, really. Okay. Yeah. Let's hear the question and the answer then from Richard.
So I asked you, which two American bands of the 1960s were both originally called the Warlocks?
Ooh.
The answer is both the Velvet Underground and the Grateful Dead in their early days called themselves the Warlocks. Did you know that?
No, of course I didn't. Of course I didn't, because I go out sometimes and meet real people. Okay, so we, Jean and Dan and Rob and Jenny all got that answer right. You are all massive nerds, but I'm actually going to give the prize this week to Morph. And I say prize, the only prize really is to be crowned the Steve Show biggest loser. And no, of course I appreciate you getting in touch. And yeah, it's just a bit of fun. It's just a bit of fun. Oh dear. Okay, so there'll be another of those impossibly difficult questions next week. Plus, we'll also be catching up with Dave again. Maybe I'll have some slightly different guests next week. Dan and Harry, I'm sure, will join me, but I'll maybe bring in some other blood and see what music they bring in. Plus, hopefully, some more listeners. If you want to get in touch and suggest tunes to us, then you can. It's what do we do? They go to the website, don't they? Yeah, you go to the website and you'll follow my face, and I'm sure you'll find a way of voting for tunes. So thanks for listening. So I'm just getting bored now. Let's just play the final tune. You know, we've had a decent show, but let's not ruin it by any more bad links like this one. Stuart McConey's next with the Freak Zone, and I will see you again next week. This is Hot Chip.